Got it.
Okay. We are in good shape here. Share screen.
But I have to admit some people here.
Oh,
What is this? How do I let them in? It's really annoying. Here we go. Beatrice, admit. Anna, admit. Okay.
all right. Is everyone in?
One more. Okay. So far.
Okay. Judy, if you can try to, I'm having a hard time seeing people coming in and also sharing my screen. So if you're getting messages of people popping in, if you could let them just hit the admit button, that would be very helpful.
Oh, that's how I have to hit the admit button.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's
Yeah.
what I'm doing.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Feels like it's been a while, right? Last week was Yom Ha'atzmaut, so we didn't have our class. And then I wasn't here for Shabbos, so I miss seeing everyone's faces. But we're back. We're in Parshat Emor. Parshat Emor is often described as a parsha whose central theme is Kedusha, holiness. Much of the parsha, the beginning part, talks about rules specific to the Kohanim, to the priests, especially around mourning and when a priest is allowed, a Kohen is allowed to become Tameh, to become impure, for which relatives and which circumstances. The distinction between a regular Kohen and the Kohen Gadol, the high priest. And then it makes an interesting pivot. There's a little discussion again about the Mishkan. And then we have the second major unit of Kedusha, of holiness in this parsha, which is Kedushat Hazman, the sanctity of time, and a lengthy discussion of the Moadim, of the different holidays. Okay, so it's familiar. We actually we read from it on various Yom Tovs. And perhaps familiar to us from this time of year, it also within the context of the discussion of Pesach and then Shavuot, we have, of course, the discussion of Sfirat HaOmer, of the Omer ritual, counting the Omer, cutting the Omer, which we've been discussing and studying in depth in our time between Mincha and Maariv on Shabbos afternoon. So I wanted to look at actually one anomaly in the description of the holidays, which leads to very rich discussion and some beautiful ideas. So we pick up, right, it begins, what's the first moed that's described? It's not on the sheet, but what would be the first holiday, the first appointed time that's described?
Pesach.
Not Pesach.
First Shabbos.
Yomer.
Nope.
Shabbos.
Shabbos.
Oh.
So the first one is Shabbos.
Oh.
And then
Not
we
Rosh
have,
Chodesh?
not Rosh Chodesh. Rosh Chodesh is interesting. Rosh Chodesh is not here, is not included in this section. It's included in other descriptions of holidays in other parts of the Torah, but it's not here. And there's a whole discussion about the nature of Rosh Chodesh, right? Is it considered a holiday in any way? Is it a Chag? So that's an interesting observation, but no, Rosh Chodesh is not included here. So we begin with Shabbos, and then we have Pesach, and then it follows the course of the year. So from Pesach, we go to the description of the Omer, and whatever mention of Shavuot is made here. It's right, not so clear if there's any mention of Shavuot here. And then all the Tishrei holidays, all the holidays of Tishrei, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot, Shmini Atzeret. So in the context of the description of the Omer and Shavuot, begins the top of page 1. Is this zoomed in enough? Can everyone see the source sheet okay?
Yeah, could be a bit bigger.
Okay.
That's better.
That's
Okay.
fine.
So Usfartem lachem mocharat hashabbat miyom aviachem et omer hatznufa sheva shabbatot tmimot tiyena. You should count from the morrow of the Sabbath from the day when you bring the barley waving offer, 7 complete weeks. Ad mimocharat haShabbat haShvi'it tisbu 50 yom. You should count 50 days, and then you'll bring a special sacrifice, which consists of grain offerings. And then if we get to the end of this section, the English got bolded. I'm not sure why the Hebrew did not, but Pasuk 21, Kaf Aleph, Ukratem be'etzem hayom hazeh mikra kodesh yelachem, ki kol melechat avodah lo ta'asu, chukat olam b'chol moshvotechem l'dorotechem. You should call on the 50th day, on this day should be a holy gathering. You should not do any work. This is an eternal statute in all of your dwellings for all time. And this is what we're going to focus on. Uvekutzrechem et kitzir artzachem, lo tichale pe'at sadcha bikatzrecha veleket kitzircha lo tilaket, le'ani velager ta'azov otam, ani Hashem Elokechem. When you reap the harvest of your land, you shall not reap all the way to the edges of your field or gather the gleanings of your harvest. You shall leave them for the poor and the stranger. I, Hashem, am your God. 2 questions. Only one question is going to make sense right now. The question that's going to make sense right now is, what is this doing here? Right after this, the Torah goes on to discuss Rosh Hashanah, then Yom Kippur, then Sukkot. Why is this one pasuk with 2 or 3 laws of agriculture? Wait, what are the laws that we have referenced here?
Peah,
Which is leaving of the corners.
leket,
Leket, which is the gleanings. And shichacha, which is that which you forget.
that's what you forget. Yep.
Yeah, so like gleanings and shichacha are kind of the same thing, but like one is that you cut and then forgot, and one is that you forgot to even cut, but you passed by it. So all those have to be left for the poor, and the question is, why is that mentioned here? And the question becomes even stronger if anyone was paying attention in this past Shabbos' Torah reading. We have an almost identical pasuk in Parshat Kedoshim.
Oh, yeah.
Down in source number 2. Right, so it starts famously, right? This last week was a double parsha. So normally it's the beginning of Parshat Kedoshim, but here it got sort of lumped into the middle of the Torah reading because we transition within one aliyah from the first parsha to the second parsha. But it begins. You should be holy, for I, the Lord your God, am holy. All right, fear your parents. Do not worship idols. When you offer sacrifices, it must be of your own volition. I think we're probably on to the next page. And then we come to verse number 9. Uvekutzrechem et kitzir artzachem lo tichale pe'at sadcha liktzor veleket kitzircha lo tilaket. When you harvest, when you reap the harvest of your land, you shall not reap all the way to the edges of your field or gather the gleanings of your harvest. You shall not pick your vineyard, bear or gather the fallen fruit of your vineyards. You shall leave them for the poor and the stranger. I, Hashem, am your God. Sound familiar?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Hey, Amiad, how are you? All right. So the second question is, number 1, we said, why is this mitzvah or these 2 mitzvot or 3 mitzvot mentioned in the context of the Moadim, of the holidays? And it's even a stronger question if we think about the fact that we already read this in last week's Parsha. So why is it repeated? Why is it repeated? And if we're going to repeat it, why specifically repeat it here?
But
We're in the gathering of the barley, right?
Okay.
So that would mean that all of the things pertaining to things that have to be harvested should be mentioned.
Okay. Good. We'll come back to that in a second. Jeff, what were you going to say?
charity is a function of holiness, is an aspect of holiness.
Charity is an aspect of holiness, but we could ask the question, why specifically these aspects of charity, right? Meaning, why doesn't it either give a general, don't forget about the stranger, don't forget about the poor people? Why specifically this? So before we get to what Anne said, let's just quickly look at Rashi, because it's an interesting Rashi. I'm not sure exactly how to make sense of it, but I didn't want to not mention what he says. Okay, so uvikutz rechem, when you reap the harvest, chazar v'shana, so Rashi tells us, right, this is a repetition, lavor aleihem b'shnei lavin, right? So to say that if you fail to do this, you actually transgress two separate prohibitions. Right, leket and shechacha. Amar Rabbi Avdimi bar Rabbi Yosef, Mara hakatuv litna be'emtza harigalim. So, right, our first question: why does the Torah Avdimi says in the name of Rabbi Yosef? Rashi's quoting from the Medrash. Why does the Torah give this commandment in the middle of its description of the holidays? Pesach v'atzeret mikan, Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippurim v'Chag mikan. Right, it's sandwiched in between Pesach and Shavuot on one side, and Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and Sukkot on the other side. L'lamdecha, shekol hanotein leket shichacha upeya, le'ani kara'ui, ma'alin alav ke'ilu bana beit hamikdash v'ikriv korbanotav bitocho. It is to teach us that whoever observes these commandments properly, whoever gives or allows for the poor to take leket, the gleanings, the forgetting, or the peah, the corners of the field, as is commanded by the Torah, it is considered as if that person has built the Beit HaMikdash and offered sacrifices in it. Any thoughts as to how this one connects to the other? How does this connect to building the Beit HaMikdash, or is this considered giving a sacrifice?
This might be, if I can say, this is a foreshadowing of what the Nevi'im, many of the Nevi'im would be arguing about, not getting caught up in what some people might think are the more important details of how to worship and venerate God and so on. Service of God is directly related and proportionate to the service we give when we assist those who are in need, so that they too not only can survive, but enjoy, participate in, and observe the holidays that are commanded. Beautiful
thought, Robert. We'll come back to that. We'll come back to that idea. So Robert suggests that maybe it's that if we only focus on the ritual and the Beit HaMikdash and the Korbanot, then we're sort of missing the point. And so it's easy to think that maybe those are the, quote, more important mitzvot. So the Torah tells us that no, that right, just like we say Talmud Torah Keneged Kulam, that studying Torah is considered equal or just as weighty or just as significant as all the other mitzvot combined. So this is sort of a similar message that giving to the poor is on a similar level as offering sacrifices or going to the Beit HaMikdash. Hannah, I saw your hand.
Yeah, so could it also be something like because the Beit HaMikdash was destroyed because people didn't care about each other, so this is how we can bring it back by caring for other people.
Or right at this point in history, right, this is how we can preserve the Beit HaMikdash. If you want to, right, if you want to ensure that you will always have access to the Beit HaMikdash, then be sure that you are properly observing these mitzvot related to Ben Adam L'Chavero, to ensure that the
because that's what made us lose the Beit HaMikdash.
Right, beautiful. So I saw another interesting explanation, which is elsewhere in the Torah's description of the holidays, we're told often, Lo tiru panai rekam. You shall not come empty-handed when you come to the Beit HaMikdash. So there's an interesting comment by the Yereim, Rabbi Eliezer of Minsk, who's one of the important Rishonim, one of the important early authorities, right, pre-Shulchan Aruch, post-Talmud, who says that do not come empty-handed means whenever you come to the Beit HaMikdash, you must bring a sacrifice or a charitable donation. I don't know what basis he has for that, right? It's very clear you have to bring a sacrifice when you come for the holidays. But he said that there's even this idea that that coming for the holiday requires providing for the poor, which is a really interesting thought and ties in nicely to what we've said so far. And we'll come back to some of these ideas in a little while.
Oh, so that they could offer those things as sacrifices.
Maybe, although generally,
Offerings or something. Yeah.
right, except that the holiday sacrifices are generally animal sacrifices.
Right, but they have to be accompanied by something else.
Right, so maybe it's the accompanying, or maybe it's so they can sell it and then buy, so that's an interesting idea. Maybe you have to bring charity to make sure that the poor people can also participate in the ritual celebration of the holiday. Very interesting thought. And that might be, I have to look at the Uraim again. That